Today, we're sitting down with Amish, founder of Forward Level, to talk about the 15-year journey of building a company around people, culture, and authenticity. We get into betting on yourself, thinking long-term, hiring the right people, and why success eventually becomes about choice. Thanks for being here, man.
Looking forward to it.
Where are we sitting right now?
This is Forward Level HQ.
And you've been here for?
I think we figured out since 2017. So coming up on 9 years, actually this July.
Amazing.
I know, yeah. We didn't have glass in here, as I was telling you before, when we first moved in and hosted a concert on the patio, but things have changed.
Yeah, no doubt. So 9 years in this space, almost 15 years total.
Yeah, I didn't get that far when I was thinking about planning this out. I never thought it would get to 15, but here we are. Yeah, it's exciting. I really think that we're just finding out who we are right this year, and launching into year 15 is pretty exciting knowing that. It takes a while to kind of develop and figure out who you are, and as a person, but also as a company. And this is kind of like, it's funny you ask that, like when you look around here, you kind of always forget that this is ours, like in terms of Forward Levels, and you kind of just get an autopilot and come and you put your head down, you get your work done, you have fun together, and you leave. And then sometimes when you're here and it's like just this, you kind of get to realize like, oh, this is pretty awesome. Yeah, it's a really good gathering space.
It's unreal. I felt like, there's good natural light, and the field works out great for what we're doing. So I can't imagine, it's any different for
Not too many fights for the window spots, which is good.
Yeah. I'd be fighting for the window spot.
Yeah, everyone's actually pretty cordial about it. But there's one there. Yeah, you can sit there if you want.
Perfect. Well, you said in there that you could have never planned for the 15 years, or you didn't know that would be the case. What do you plan for? What was going through your head when you started the business? And
at that point in time too, you have this kind of like this dream fantasy that you can build something and be out in 5 years and retire and things like that. And I'm not gonna lie, that was part of like, hey, I can build this and then maybe like go do other things and keep like natural entrepreneur, keep moving on to the next thing. But then you kind of get these lessons, right? And you learn how long it takes to build a business. And the first 5 is really just figuring out if you are a business. And so when I said I didn't get that far, I honestly was too naive, I think, to think what it could be and where it could go and the impact it could have on not only just our clients, but our people who work here. And when I think about that, what was I thinking about then? It was not necessarily the longevity of it, but how do we differentiate ourselves? And how do we make this so it will kind of keep going year after year? Like I was thinking in years, right? I wasn't really thinking in 15 years, a decade, like that's a crazy term to even say. I wasn't thinking in decades, I was thinking in years. And so I think over the time now, I'm starting to think in decades, which is now it's like you're thinking about, okay, what's our impact? Not like the planning for next year is already done. And so it's like, what's our planning for the next 3 years? Like that's what you start to think about. And I think that's where the exciting part is when I was saying like, you kind of figure out who you are. And then you kind of stay the course and kind of hold the vision, not the circumstance, because there's been a lot of circumstances along the way. And so I think that's what we're focused on now is how do we actually differentiate ourselves and how do we lean into who our true authentic selves are as a company, as the individuals that show up in the company. And that's been really exciting. That's been like another rebirth, so to speak.
You said the early stages you were planning in 1 year at a time, that sort of thing. And now, decades. How do you plan for those things when technology and clients and business are coming up and down in those amounts of time? It seems like a large amount of time. Some people I've heard are kind of shifting the other direction where they're like, yeah, I've downplayed to like 6 months, which I love the vision. But
yeah, that's a good question. And it's not so much planning it in terms of like, it's not planning the actual, the actions. It's planting the seeds that you want to grow, and you hope to see will grow. And you don't know if they'll all grow, right? I just we bought a new house, and I'm just getting into developing stuff in the backyard, right? And it's like this blank canvas, and we're planting stuff, but we don't know if it's gonna last in the next 2 or 3 years, but the vision of what it could be is still there. And I think it's the same way in terms of this is we're planning more what could be. There's gonna be circumstances along the way, There's going to be situations along the way. Yeah, there's new tools, technology, all that along the way. But that should only really help us or prove to highlight the challenges or the holes in the plan, right? And then if we can kind of overcome those challenges and holes and still hold the vision, I think that's really what I mean by planning a decade. And personally too, I'm starting to think of my life in decades versus a year. And so that's kind of what I've been working on, is what I call like the me design. And like what buckets of my life, because I haven't been doing that. And I had a really cool experience about a longevity kind of conversation, and how long do you want to live, and the path to getting to that number was an interesting exercise. And I did that years ago, but I never really thought anything of it past that. And then I thought about, okay, wait, hold on a second though. Like if you start expanding the runway in your thinking, so if you don't think a year out, so we underestimate what we can do in a decade and overestimate what we can do in a year. And if you start thinking that way, you started creating your space for those mistakes or for those challenges that come up. The pressure valve is kind of released a bit, because you've given yourself a longer runway to get to that same vision. Rather than mapping out year by year, you're mapping out and forget if it's a decade, it could be 3, 5, 7, 10 years, but it's a longer runway. And then you start to think about, okay, well, how do we get there? How do we reverse engineer that? And it allows you to account for the bumps along the way, kind of thing. And I think that's what I've been kind of trying to change the habit of myself in thinking that way.
I love that mentality, and I love the idea of thinking longer term, because then, if you have this idea and this vision of what you want it to be, regardless of the tools and the technology and the people and all these different things, then you're subconsciously making decisions to achieve that results, right? Even when you're not actively thinking about it.
100%. And you're also starting to change who you are. Let's drill down to the individual level. Like for me, I'm starting to get really more invested in reading about self-performance and health and longevity type habits that are going to allow me to live a full, happy, healthy life. And all of a sudden now it's like, if I'm not thinking down that road, I'm not choosing what I ate today properly, just to be like really tactical level, right? But having that vision, and again, like I could say I want to live to 121, which is my number. I may not get there, right? Like I may not get there, but it's going to help me decide what my habits are today to help me to get there. And that's really what it's all about. So even in business, I find that you can't over-architect this. Like it is a very much like you have to deal with what's going to come at you throughout the year and throughout the years. But there has to be some sort of true North Star or some sort of vision, and that it may shift, it may alter. And that's part of it. That's part of life. But I think like setting that down, it also allows everyone around you to kind of get behind that idea and see how they fit in. And then they may design their own me design around this. And does it align to where we want to go? And does it align to where I want to go and things like that? So when I say I think in decades, it's not so much like this is like the type A, this can happen, this can happen. I'm far from it. I think it's more about, hey, this is generally where I want to be. Now let's figure out how to get there.
It sounded like that was a personal experience. You said you did that longevity kind of planning in your own life. And then how do you translate that to business? Because obviously you're planning in 10 years now. Do you do any work with that kind of concept with your staff and that sort of thing as well?
It's a good question. I mean, I think we can be better at it. I think that's just kind of starting to creep in. We do it naturally, just about who our culture is or what our culture is, in the sense of we believe in, and people are our biggest asset. We're a human experience firm, right? Like, and it's like, this is important. And so how do they fit in to Forward Level? How does Forward Level fit into their life is a very important conversation. And it's one that does creep up. And I think we do it organically rather than, okay, let's sit down and build yours kind of thing. But it is something that, I think naturally curious about. And I think so is everyone on our team is, what's the landing spot, right? Like where do I want to land? And where do I feel like this is really aligned to who I am and things like that? I think that's becoming more important. And so I guess it's not so much of an active, let's sit down and discuss this. I think it's just naturally how you show up every day and what are the conversations you're having and how do we approach them? Are we treating this as much bigger than forward level, which is what it is, right? And I think those are the kinds of things and the actions that we tend to focus on.
You said in there something really interesting that I want to double click on, which is that you're 15 years in and you're just figuring out who you are and who which is fascinating. And people who have businesses that are 15 years old know exactly what you're talking about, and people who are starting out probably have no idea. They're like, oh, I know exactly who I am or who I'm going to be, etc. Double click, like unpack that for me. What does that mean? Who are you?
Curiosity is a wonderful thing, right? And I think if you're curious about where you could go, you'll always reinvent. And I think that's really what this is all about. It's not necessarily about, hey, like at 15, you're going to find out who you are. It's no different than growing up as a kid, right? Like you think you want to, like we were laughing not too long ago because we were all at family, I think it was a family dinner. My mom was joking. It's like, Amish wanted to be a truck driver when he grew up. Like that's it. That's all I knew. That's all I wanted to be was a truck driver. And I had trucks for like toys, and that's all I ever wanted. Now, naturally that evolved and we all joked, thankfully, I chose a different career path, but not that there's anything wrong with truck drivers, but it's just like that wasn't my strength, I still would love to drive a truck, but I think that's natural evolution of growing up, and then businesses are the same, right? Like they grow up, and what you think was the service offering, or where you think was the right people involved, or where you think maybe the right environment, clients, you name it, is going to change, right? It's going to change. And as soon as you get comfortable with that and understand that, okay, well, like, let's just, when you said unpack that, that's exactly it. Let's start to unpack that. And once you start to create the space, you can actually start to create. And I think that's really what happens as you start to develop the space to start thinking about that stuff. And what happens is, as you grow up as a company, is systems and processes come in place. There's more people, your culture evolves, really cool people enter your lives. And we're really fortunate with the gang that we have here. Like, this is a group of good humans, and all of a sudden they expand your thinking, right? And I'm like, I didn't think about it that way, or what else could be? And again, it's not necessarily like we sat down and said, where are we going to be? It's just like you start to collect these ideas as you're going along. And the natural curiosity of it all is, okay, where could we go now? And so who are we today is we've evolved from was a marketing company in 2011. And what's held true to the vision is we're still the marketing department that people hire us, but we've rebranded to become a human experience firm. And we've added HR to the fold now. So now we can really impact a small business by helping them attract the right clientele and then help them develop their talent to deliver on the promises they made to attract those clients. And so the impact we're seeing now is twofold, which is really interesting. So we've kind of started to figure out actually how do we show up here? And then also, like, what kind of work do we want to track? Like, what are we really good at? And we've realized the ones that we're not good at. And it doesn't mean we can't do it. It just means it takes a little bit more effort and a little bit more elbow grease to deliver it. But then when you get into your flow state and you figure out exactly, oh, this is where we can really live, I think we've just figured that out. And that's what's really exciting, I think, for everyone here in these walls right now, is like we've figured that out. And now it's kind of like, okay, let's see what we got with it. And let's let it sit and let's go.
I love the analogy to being a kid too, like where, you're absolutely right. And I think maybe as we're starting businesses, we always think, oh, this is exactly what we're going to do. But you have to do it to determine what you're good at. You have to do it to determine what you hate. You also have to listen to your clients and listen to your team as far as like the feedback they're giving you, right?
And totally. And not only that, your interest level changes, your skill set develops into different skill sets that you never thought maybe you were even interested in. As an owner of a business too, like 3 years ago, I may have thought, I joke around this with a lot of people, like, I'm not a marketer. I realize I'm more of a brand and business strategist than I am a marketer, but yet I started a marketing company, right? I mean, it's all connected, but you start to almost refine and sharpen your toolkit, and you start to realize which tools you're really good at working with. And that takes time, That takes time. And so when we're talking to, even with the team here, like what we're really proud of is that we have really low turnover, and it allows us to, how do we actually foster that environment where they can grow and they can figure out what tools they're really good with. And then we know it's going to fit into our ecosphere somehow. And then we just kind of figure out, okay, well, does that evolve the service offering now? Does that evolve the kind of work we want to do? Does that change the kind of work you want to do? And so it's a living organism, a business is. And I think that's what I really appreciate about it. No 2 days are the same, which is kind of like, a twisted thing to say, and because, people want stability. The challenges, the opportunities, they're always changing, right? And it depends on a conversation. A conversation can change it all.
There's a beauty and a curse to that, right? Like we chat about that internally in the office all the time, is like, I don't think any of us want the same, every day of the week to look the exact same. That's why we work with different clients. That's why we solve different problems, all these different things. And, the living organism couldn't be more true.
Yeah. And not only that, you don't want to shoot the same type of content every day, or else, you'll get really good at it, but innovation plateaus at a certain time, right? And so I think that is the challenge of, like, there's one thing about really leaning into the type of work you get into, but then how do you constantly, is it exciting enough, and is it impactful enough where you're continuously innovating? Because once the innovation plateaus, the value to cost ratio, the equilibrium there starts to not be equal, and things tend to start to then unravel a bit. So yeah, but the flip side, I think stability is good. So there is this underground of foundation that you need from an organizational standpoint of who we are. And if we have that foundation, then we're allowed to kind of take those risks of those new projects or the new type of work, and see if it was but if it wasn't a good fit, at least we can fall back on the foundation that is sturdy and that's there for everyone to kind of lean back on. It's the safety net.
You mentioned as a kid you wanted to be a truck driver, which I love. That's awesome. Were there any signs earlier in your life that, as a kid or even in your teenage years or high school or anything like that, where you exhibited, signs of entrepreneurial behavior?
Yeah, sure. I think so. Just the overall, defiance of the norm. I'm pretty good at challenging, where's the line? Okay, let me see if I can step over it a little bit without anyone saying anything. I was pretty good at that. And also, I wasn't a troublemaker in that sense, but I was a creative troublemaker. I knew how to have fun with it. And I didn't know that then, but what I know now is I think that's a lot to the entrepreneurship. If you can be a creative troublemaker, I think you're cut out to kind of figure it out along the way. And I think that wasn't necessarily what I thought I was going to be. I kind of started to think about it more in university. My dad left a secure job and started his own engineering consulting company. I didn't really appreciate what that meant at the time. I just thought, oh, cool, he went on his own. That was pretty neat. He's his own boss. And, and then when he would win a contract, he'd come home and celebrate and we're like, oh yeah, cool. Then I'm going to go back to playing my toys or whatever, right? And now, having gone through that, I wish I understood what it was for him to be there to celebrate more with him. And it's not like he felt that, but I get it now. I get what that win feels like, and it's validation, right? Like everything you've built, you're artists. When you put something out, you're probably thinking, okay, I hope they like it. We're bearing our creative energies here. There's no difference than business owners. And I don't think it's like, well, I hope they like it. It's like, I hope they see value in it to want to hire me and then want to continue to work with me. And I think there's that sense of validation that happens when A, you win a contract, and B, they renew, and C, you get the positive feedback. Now there's bumps along the way, but it kind of tells you this idea has legs to it. And then it kind of makes you want to keep doing it, And I think when I was a kid, so a long way of saying that is, I think I had a sense of that. I would try something. Hey, it actually worked. I'm gonna repeat it, and I'm gonna add on to it, And so I wasn't slinging papers on the side or anything like that. But I always did think in my mid-20s, I thought to myself, hey, if I work this hard for myself as I am for someone else, I know I'll make it. I know I'll be fine. And then there's this willingness to, what I had was the willingness to bet on myself. And I think that's the crucial thing about entrepreneurship is like, are you willing to bet on yourself? And what's the worst possible case scenario? It doesn't work out. Are you willing to bet on yourself you can get a job? If the answer is yes, then go try. That's what I did.
Were you leaving something stable to bet on yourself?
Left something stable, yeah. It wasn't my choice.
Okay.
Yeah, I got fired. And it was a humbling experience. And I was mid to late 20s. Never ever have I ever been fired from a job kind of thing. And it shakes you a bit, right? It shakes your confidence. You're like, why did I do something? And I didn't, like it was just that the fit wasn't there. And for whatever reasons that, we don't need to get into, but it allowed me to like hit this, like go do what I always wanted to do, right? Like that was the launching point of starting Forward Level. Like, believe it or not, like, I'm like, thank God I got fired, right? Like, who knows how long I would have been there and said like, oh, not yet. I'll still learn more and then I'll go do it. I was inevitably going to go on my own, but this was kind of the, hey, we're going to make the decision for you. And so I took the 10 weeks I went traveling to Southeast Asia. Yeah. And you never get to do that, in a mid-career kind of thing. I mean, you do, but not planned. Or maybe planned, I shouldn't say that. But I went traveling and then I came back and I said, okay, well, I think this is the time. And then that was 2011. Yeah, 15 years ago. Isn't that wild?
Yeah, and never looked back.
It was 15 years ago to this date, I would have been in Bali. Yeah, I was on the Gili Islands.
Wow.
Yeah, which is crazy to think. Well, you just took me back. I can feel it there. Like, yeah, it was the Gili Islands is small. There's no transportation other than bicycle or horse cart. And I was there 15 years ago today.
Wow.
Or sorry, yeah. I was entering that island about 15 years ago today. Oh, crazy.
Crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah.
What is that like? Like, were you traveling solo?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I traveled. So I traveled solo for the first 3 weeks. And then I somehow convinced one of my best friends, he has a 2-year-old at home, and God bless his fiance at the time, Brandy, that said, yeah, you can go. And so for 4 weeks, he met me and we went and traveled Thailand together and ended up in Singapore. We had a friend in Singapore, and then he went back home and I went to Bali. But I was on my own. And that was the time where when you're traveling, Wi-Fi wasn't the most reliable, and that's the only way you could really connect with anything. So it was Skype, and no one could really call you. So what was really freeing about it was like you were almost off the grid, so to speak. Like you were really off the grid because it's not like today where someone can FaceTime you right away as soon as you have. It just didn't work that way. You had to like get onto Skype and all that kind of stuff and buy credits and all that kind of stuff. And so I forgot what a phone sounded like. I had a moment in Vietnam where every day I would come home and I would pay another $9 US to stay another night at this one guest house I found. And it was beautiful, like 1-bedroom room, but the patio overlooked I just don't know how I found it. And so I forgot one night to pay $9. So all of a sudden in the morning, I heard what I thought was a fire alarm going off, and I opened the door quickly and no one was in the hall. So I'm like so puzzled. And I go back in and it was actually the phone ringing. And I haven't heard a phone ring in 6.5 weeks. So I thought it was the fire alarm. And it was just the front desk ladies asking like, another $9? I'm like, yeah, I'm in, let's go.
Yeah.
But I was totally off the grid for a bit, which was really good. And then came back just in time to be the best man at my friend's wedding. They didn't think I was showing up because I was that close to coming back. I was, but I did. And then 2 months later, I got my first gig through Forward Level.
I'm glad this timing is working.
It's crazy.
So well.
It's kind of serendipitous, actually.
Yeah, totally. During that time when you're kind of like, you mentioned it's like being off grid, right? Which now we seek as entrepreneurs, right? Everybody does, right? The time to kind of be be within your own head and figure out what your next personal kind of steps are and that sort of thing. Were you planning kind of how you wanted to build the business at that time, or was it more so just reflection on kind of what you've done so far? And
when I was traveling?
Yeah.
Oh God, no. I was enjoying the moment, and I was not thinking about anything at that time. And I think that's a pretty rare thing to be able to say, other than just exploring and adventure and, being a kid almost. And, I wasn't that young. I was still wasn't that old. I wasn't that young. I was mid-20s, but it was just that freeing kind of travel, not knowing where you're going to be the next day, just a backpack. And, I think I bought a guitar in Bali too and just played. Like, it's just amazing memories, right? And no, I wasn't at all, going back to like how far in advance are you thinking to build? And at that moment, I was thinking in days, right? I was thinking in days, and then when I came back, I would say I was thinking in months, because when you start a company, you don't know if it's going to last. You don't even know if you have any. Like I had a $3,500 job for the first 3 months. That's not sustainable, right? And then you just keep going at it. And I was thinking in months, like, hey, month to month kind of thing. And then once you kind of get your first kind of contract, then I start thinking in years. And now, like we talked about, now I'm thinking more in past years kind of thing, more than years. But back then it was a good time just to totally be off the grid, disconnect, and not think like, I saw a comedian and they said like, there's this nothing box. There's nothing in it. And that's where I was for 10 weeks. Yep.
It's a beautiful place to be.
It was a beautiful place to be. Yeah, and I always try to get back there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's harder and harder every time.
It's harder and harder. There's a lot more things that try to get into their nothing box.
Yeah,
So no, I wasn't thinking about anything.
So you get your first gig when you get back, like you said, and then I'm always curious about when you think it's the right time to hire your first staff member. What did that look like for you? Were you overwhelmed with work alone, or
it's
a skill set that you didn't know, or?
You don't know. You really don't know. But yeah, there's a decision to be made there. And one is, are you happy with the life you have? And are you happy with that's going to be the life you have moving forward? Which is totally fine, right? Like you can dictate when you work, you can dictate who you work with, you can dictate where from, and all those things. And that's great. And you can make a great living doing that. The decision I had was, I want to build something. I want to build a company. And I didn't want it to be just relying on me as a solopreneur. So that was the inflection point where I was like, okay, well, the work's coming in. And the nature of the work that we have with our clients from the very beginning was we become your marketing department. So we're on a monthly retainer. And it's not really a project, one-off projects there. We had to, as we were growing up, to kind of take on the work and kind of get us to the vision. But the decision was there. It's like, okay, well, I got my first contract. And now it's like, if I am the only one fulfilling all this work, I can't go get another one. And so I had to be okay with, it was a pretty sizable contract that that money's not going to go into my pocket. It's going to go into whoever I hire. But with the vision that I can go get more work, and then eventually, you're continuously in this reinvestment phase. You have to be okay with that, because as the more work comes in, the more people start to come in, and the money's really always funneling to everyone else's pockets, essentially, right? Which is okay. That's why you sign up for this. And that was the decision I made. I was like, okay, no, I want to build this thing. And so it's a big decision. And looking back then compared to what it is now, it's not as big of a decision as you think, but it is. It certainly is in that time. But in having gone through that numerous times now, it's actually a very exciting thing to add people, because it means, again, your vision's being supported by other people. So they see what you see enough to that they're willing to put their livelihood and their efforts and their 40 hours a week or whatever it is with you. So that's really exciting. But it was a big stress to take on that salary. That's overhead now. And then you start to learn about overhead, and you start to learn about time management, and you start to learn about, okay, I have this other person now to care for and mentor, because when you first started, you can't hire this senior person to kind of take everything off. So it almost like your work doubles a little bit. And so I shared an office with the first hire. It was an 8x10 office. So when I first started, the contract I got was with this accounting firm, this tax accounting firm. And I rented a desk from them, just like a cornered, like just like in the bullpen kind of thing, just so I had a presence downtown and I could go back and forth, and I committed X amount of hours to them to a week kind of thing. And then as I made my first hire, I rented an 8x10 office from them. So there's two of us in an 8x10 office. And then as we grew, I hired numbers 2 and 3. And then we've got the corner office. And when 4 of us were in this corner office, shared with another guy who worked at the firm. So he was kind of like our honorary team member. And then from there, we went and we kind of grew up with them. It was kind of like growing up in the parents' basement. And when they moved, we rented a 600 square foot kind of space from them within their office. And there were 6 of us in there. And then fast forward to 2017, we kind of arrived and kind of finally got to put our name on the door, which is a proud moment for us. And now that's kind of filled with our things and things like that, which was awesome. But I mean, it all started with that first hire. And it was like the true belief that this could work. Because it's an important decision. Like, you're not only making it for yourself, but the person who's putting their trust in their career, to like, hey, it takes a lot for that person. Like, I didn't have a track record then, right? I had like 6 months of forward level, so not a lot. But I think it worked out in the sense that I think that person had about 6 months of track record too. So kind of like, but yeah, it was an important decision. I mean, people are the biggest asset.
There's so much trust transfer that happens early on, your first client, your first hire, them trusting you, to your point, right? There's so much that goes on. Did you ever have trouble like delegating some of the tasks that you were doing early on?
I think it's a lot of people's biggest challenge, right? It's like the art of delegation is really tough, really, really tough. And for sure, and I probably still do today, right? But it's something I've continuously worked on. I value delegation, and I think there's an art to how you can delegate. There's also like a communication requirement. There's understanding people's MOs, how they best receive feedback, information, vice versa. I don't think it was a challenge to delegate. Like I think what we talked about earlier is once you kind of go through the days, months, years of your business, you start to see what tools you're better with, and some other people might be better without those other tools. So the delegation becomes easier because you don't necessarily want to work with those tools anymore either. And those people do. Like, that's what they love. That's their favorite tool. And so I think delegation became easier as we hired the right fit to take on the work, to backfill the work, right? So what's called often as like your unique ability I'm a member at Strategic Coach, which they teach you about your unique ability. And it's like, what's your flow state? What are you meant to do? And let's stay in that pocket as much as you can and delegate. So delegate everything but your genius is really the theory. And I love that, because once you can kind of start to backfill yourself with other great people that's their unique abilities, there's a cascade effect. And all of a sudden it's like that hire is more than just, that one body or that one person, or the amount of hours they work, or whatever your mechanism for your work is. But there's a real impact on the person who's no longer doing that work that was noise to them. It kind of frees you up to do the work you're really good at and find your pocket, right? And so it's like, how do you start thinking about decades if you're stuck in the days? And having those right hires and the right people are crucial to getting you out of the days, and trusting them that okay, I don't need to worry about the days now, right? And just like they don't need to worry about the years. There's a two-way street here, right? Because I will take care of you in years, you take care of me in days, right? And our business, like that's in that sense. And there's this awesome partnership that starts to develop when you start to have that team. I liken it to sports teams. Like, I grew up playing hockey. I love sports. And you look at all these teams and the NHL contenders and the Stanley Cup contenders, and they talk about the core four, there is truth to low turnover on a team, right? Like the Florida Panthers that just got the Tkachuk brothers, right? The big news, right? But they have everyone signed for the next 6 years or whatever that window is. They don't have to think about how they play with each other. The chemistry just gets better and better each year. They know who they are. They know the families. Like, there's all this familiarity. It's no difference than in business. And I think if we can collect these people and build a culture where everyone's kind of starting to slowly work their ways to the flow state, the rest kind of takes care of itself. And so that's our job, I believe, is, I know the question started off as delegation, but I think delegation in not only work, but delegation in the sense of like, okay, well, how do we create this environment for you to be successful? So when delegations do happen, it's you're in your pocket or you're getting close to your pocket, and you have this environment that's supportive. You're going to be here. You want to be here. Like all those things kind of come into it. And so I think at the beginning, you're still figuring all that out, and you see churn, people come and go. Maybe it wasn't the delegation that was wrong, but maybe it was the environment. Like there's so many variables. And as we've grown, I think the variables start to come off the table a bit.
That's awesome. And it goes full circle, right? Because earlier in the conversation, you were saying that one of the things you're most proud of is the least amount of turnover that you have.
Totally.
I'm sure there's a million different reasons for that, obviously. There's, like you said, many variables. But if you were to kind of pinpoint one or two, that would be kind of the key of the glue that holds your team together and maybe why you have the least amount of turnover. What do you think that might be?
It would be a question for them. To be honest, I could sit here and kind of speculate, but I actually think it's, and don't get me wrong, we have had turnover over the years, right? And it takes a while to figure out that core. And it's difficult when you're still figuring out yourself out, and I think as you figure yourself out, then the people who figured themselves are like, this is where I want to land. And I think that's a big part of it. Like, I don't want to be here and profess that, it's because of the culture or things like that. And certainly that's a part of it. But I think it's once you figure out who you are and what your values are, I think the people will decide if it's the right fit for them. Ultimately, it's their decision, right? And then it goes into how I think we approach work. Like our work is the ethos of 4 levels. That's business and people. It always has been, it always will be. And that's not only just for clients, that's for team. It's for the owners. It's for anyone that are consultants. It's for other friends. It's for the centers of influence. It's anyone in our network. We're at a human business. It's a human thing. And I think that's part of it. I think once you kind of really live that, I think the facade goes away. And I think the realness comes. And then once like the curtains are, they're gone. This is the true company and this is the true self. Do they match? And I think once they match, that's more of why you don't have turnover versus if someone's trying to sell the other or something, because eventually you'll see through it, and I think that's part of it. And then, I mean, honestly, like over the years, we've gotten really picky on the team members that get added. And I think that's part of it. You want to be careful. It's not, you're not, and what I mean by that, number one, are they a good person? Right? You're spending so much time together. There's a lot of conversation around performance versus trust, right? High trust, high performer, like everyone wants that person. But what would you rather value at that point? Is it higher trust than performance or higher performance than trust? And we would value higher trust and performance. And I think trust comes from being a good person and all the things and all the attributes. It's a daily thing to build trust, right? There's like little tokens you put in to build the trust bank, and then one day it could all go. So it says a lot about the people that are here, I think, that they are here because they're just good people, and like our brand, Good Human, and that's exactly how it was born.
How do you go about finding out, or at least doing the best of your ability to find out if somebody's a good person? Because I couldn't agree more that that's step number one in trust and ensuring that you're going to have a good time with this person, or at least work well with that individual, and that they're going to make decisions based on things that make people good people.
Yeah.
But it's also it can be hard to tell. So
Oh man, it's so hard. And like in the first 3, 6, 9 months, it's hard to get to know someone, right? And you gotta go in with giving everyone a fair shot, in the sense that you just gotta innately believe they are a good person. That's where it starts. Then it's up to them to either live up to that or not, right? And I think that's the difference. It's not like, hey, prove it that you're a good human. I'm like, you already are, right? You already are a good person. You already are a good human. You're here, right? And now just the reason we hired you is because you're a good human. Just stay that way, and or even be a better human. And how do we help you become a better human? I think that's more about it than the opposite of like, hey, let's have a checklist and see. It's not necessarily about that. It's more about, okay, you've already started here. Prove us right. And I think that's really what it's about. And then it's like, it's hard. Like you don't know anyone, like what that's like. And it's on us to get to know the person just as much and make them feel welcome and get to know them as on a human level. Right. And I think once the guards come down, you start to really see what makes it even better. Like anyone in here that is here right now, it's like, they're already a good person. And then once like the, hey, I can actually be myself, kind of the realization comes in, they're even cooler. Right. And so that's, I think, a proud thing for us, is like, how do we create an environment where they feel that that's the expectation, that they can be themselves and it's safe to be. And then once that happens, man, watch out, because now it's like they're unleashing everything. Like they're going to be comfortable to speak up in meetings. They're going to be comfortable to try new things. Like all these other things start to happen. And I think that's really what it's all about. So when we come in an interview or whatever, it's like, we're really looking at, hey, can this person going to be a good fit? Because it's a small team. And one person who's not the right fit can impact a small team quite largely. And we've seen it happen, right? And then it's like, okay, well, now let's just be really protective of what we got here, because we got something special, and it's worked out. It's like, people love coming. Like what I love hearing is people will go on vacation and they love being on vacation. Don't get me wrong, like who doesn't? But they're like, I was so excited to come back. And that's pretty cool, right? And that's like, okay, well, you don't always hear that.
But it is what you strive for. Yeah, 100%, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, like they'd rather be on the beach still, right? But at least they weren't dreading coming to work the next day. They're actually excited to share what their positive focus was on the trip or their last week, or learn about like, hey, how did your move go, or things like that. Like people are just generally more engaged.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And I love your approach to finding the right people. I think, you hear everybody knows the stat that you, or something along the lines of, you spend more time, with the people at work that you work with than your spouse or whatever the case may be. Sure. It's like, then you got to choose those people with the same kind of, vigor, I suppose, or responsibility. Yeah. Yeah.
And not only that, it's your duty to the people that are here to make sure the next person in is going to make their life better. Right. Because that's the way I look at it. And we have our leadership team that does most of the hiring, but I've heard them say that. They're like, you know what? That was a really smart person. They're really good. I just don't think it's the right fit with our team. I'm like, I love hearing that, because you're looking out for our team here. And that's a different kind of thinking. Once you're protective of the people that are already here, I think they see that too. And they value that. And they're like, okay, like, I trust you now. If you guys have made that hire, I know what the bar is in terms of that. And then again, it's just like, when someone joins, the amount of welcome they get is incredible. It's really cool to see. Yeah. No one's kind of threatened. Because everyone knows it's like another piece to that we're adding to make this even better, I really, really enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's heard the horror stories of, the bad apple that kind of taints the rest of the team or whatever. But the opposite is also true. If you can bring somebody in that kind of inspires everybody, then obviously best case scenario. All right.
Yeah. And also, like, don't kid ourselves. We gotta be careful as leaders that we're not the bad apple. Right? Because like it's all about how we show up too. And it's not always the external people that we bring in. We got to make sure that how we show up is right too. And I've had that learning over the years, like how I show up. And it could be for a variety of reasons. It could be like, I'm not even, oh, I got the mic there. It could even be that it's nothing to do with work, but it can come across that way. And forget the bad apple term, but it could just be like this tense feeling and I get feedback from it. And I'm like, thanks for that, because yeah, like noted. And now I've put some checks in place to like, hey, if I'm, headphones on means like if I'm not talking, I just got to get some stuff done or whatever. Or I'm like, hey, if I'm put off this vibe, let me know, things like that. And, but we got to make sure just ourselves, it's not always just the people that we bring in. We got to understand that we're part of the equation too.
I really love that you bring that up. And I think that's so important and maybe something that people forget, right? Because maybe they set the culture or whatever the case may be. And then they forget that the way they show up is also observed by everybody else in the room. What are some of the ways that you kind of keep yourself in check? Obviously, you said you get team feedback, which shows that you have a great culture. But for yourself, what is there checks and balances that you have in place?
I lean on my business partner a lot. I think we lean on each other. I think we've learned how to give that feedback to each other, where it's like, hey, like if I'm giving off that vibe, just shoot me a note, right? And then I'll just leave. And again, it's nothing to do with what's inside these walls. 9 times out of 10, it's something external that's on your mind. But it impacts you, right? And it's like, or if I just need, like last week, I went to the lake just to get straight focus work done because I just needed 0 distractions. And it was better to be physically removed and do that rather than maybe even just be here and just like, I don't enjoy it if I'm too preoccupied or busy that I can't walk around and have a conversation with someone. It gets to me because I truly believe in that human connection and building that rapport and relationship. So even if it's the fact that I'm in a different external circumstance, but just busy, I'd rather not be here so I don't miss that opportunity or have a missed opportunity to make that connection, and rather just physically be somewhere and get that stuff done. So when I am here, I'm more present. And I think that's part of it. I think it's a lot of self-awareness that goes into it. Things I've learned over the 15 years is certainly one of them is how do you show up? What do you say? How do you say it? When do you say it? All those things I've definitely learned. I made mistakes along the way, 100%. But you learn from them. Like mistakes are they're a lesson in disguise. And so for me, when you ask like, what do I do? Is I think it's honestly just like a self check-in. Like, how am I doing? And not only like before I walk through the door, that's not when I do it. It'll be throughout the day. Like, are you doing? Or like, use a break or go walk around or, usually my dog's here, George. So, toss the ball or something like that. But it's just more like just general check-ins. And then knowing that, when it is going to be some sort of higher tense or focus moment, just communicating in advance. Like, hey, I'm heads down. If you need me, text me. Or, even like in the small space like this, a closed door can say a lot, right? And good or bad. And so I think it's just more leaning on yourself and self-awareness and leaning on others. But just by like, okay, yep, here's where I'm at. We're getting better at this. Try to do check-ins before a meeting if it's like a big meeting. Just like, how are you doing? And before we get into it, like, hey, like I'm starting to try to do that a bit more because it's really hard if you're preoccupied with something to be present in that moment. And it might not have anything to do with that meeting or that topic. It might be something else that's completely unrelated. And so it's good just to give that space to like check in.
I really like that. I haven't heard that before, but checking in with the individual before, so that whatever feedback or whatever responses or whatever you're getting, is
about something else, right?
Yeah.
Or it even could be like, hey, should we just push this meeting to the afternoon? And so I would say like, that's an area John and I have gotten really good at over the last few years. is, hey, I'm dealing with this. Like, can we either postpone this or move this meeting? And I would say our working partnership has gotten, we've always been really good friends and really good in terms of like just the relationship wise, getting along and all that kind of stuff. But I think our working relationship's gotten even better by the fact that we've opened up that way with each other. And again, it's being human.
Everybody's got their own thing going on, so why not? You know,
a lot of things going on,
exactly.
you know, like,
yeah, totally.
yeah, like life is nuts and at the best of times.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, how are we all navigating this together and making the best scenario out of it, given the circumstances?
In a similar vein, I'm curious about how you manage your own time. You know, there's obviously personal pressures. There's everything that comes up at work. I'm sure there's no shortage of messages and emails and all these things coming in, but also ensuring that you can show up to the best of your ability and do your exercise or whatever the case may be that you do for yourself to give you that longevity that we talked about earlier. What do you do, and how do you kind of protect, you know, your own time as well to ensure that you're showing up to the best of your ability?
There's a few things. One is I've structured my days, and I have 3 types of days. One is a focus type day. So that is like, what are your centered around, what are your top 3 revenue generating activities? And speaking about earlier, about like, has your work evolved? How are you planning? Like those revenue generating activities have significantly shifted over time. So when it was just me, one of my biggest revenue generating activities was billing time, right? BD, doing sales, and maybe one other thing. As you hire and a support team around you, billing time fell off one of my focus activities, right? Because I wasn't billing really much time. It was maybe more getting the work or what have you, or maybe operations or things like that start to focus. So that my one day is focus. So that is like it's centered on one of my top 3 revenue generating activities. And then I have definitions or I mean, that sounds pretty regimented. It's not, but I have ideas of what those look like. And then the other day is buffer days. And so a buffer day is what we talked about earlier, is like things that can be delegated, but you're still doing. Because maybe like it's just not a necessity. We can't hire everyone on, like, so for instance, some operational work, we don't have the person to do all. We have some of them, but maybe the idea is like, okay, on your buffer days, so the things you still got to get done, but they're not your focus activities, right? But they still need to get done. And then the last one is your free day or recharge. I call my recharge days. So that is no focus, no buffer, AKA no work whatsoever. And that was a hard one. That was a really hard one, because when we were challenged to do that, it was like no email, no talk about work for 24 hours straight. And if you do, then technically it's either one of a focus or a buffer, right? It was that was the idea. And so those are my 3 types of days. And I structure my days. When I don't do that, I feel very lost. And that's how I determine what meetings I'll take. That determines what kind of work I'll do that day and things like that. And so so I'll sit down at the beginning of every quarter and map out my quarter. Which are my free days, which are my focus days, which are my buffer days. And accordingly, then I can schedule meetings, I can schedule work, things like that. So I have some sort of control over the type of work I'm doing and making sure the work I'm doing is high impact on the focus days. Because as you know, things just, like you said, get thrown at you and everything like that. That's easy to get all muddled every day. And then you kind of feel like, okay, well, I didn't really accomplish anything. And with my focus days, like, okay, then I live in 3s. What are my 3 things that day? So my focus day, what are my top 3 things? So I have my own system where I'm like, okay, I have my parking lot I have to pick from in my weekly planner. And then I kind of go from there and say, okay, here's my top 3 things I need to focus on today. Check, check, check. Day was good. If not, okay, let's roll it over. But why didn't it get done is the bigger question. And that's how I kind of structure my days. And so when I don't, is when I feel really lost and almost anxious. And that's been one of the biggest tools I've kind of, that's going on about 10 years that I've been using this system. And I've really noticed the times I don't. Yeah. And I would say it was really hard to implement. It was really hard to implement, but so worth it. Once you do. I was telling you about my water drinking habit, trying to do that, right? And it's so hard for me to get to that 3 liters a day, but I'm trying hard, but I want to get it to a point where when I don't, I feel lost without it. And that's what habit building is. And so this was time management I think has allowed me to, I would say, kick the prior sexiness of entrepreneurship that you're working and you're grinding and all that. I don't believe in that. And this time management has allowed me to work normal hours, have a life, build something cool, without sacrificing. I mean, there's sacrifice, but without sacrificing the things that are important to me, like health, relationships, having fun, having a life outside. And we bring that here internally too, is there's it's business and people. It's life as well, right? And so the time management piece is crucial for me.
And it goes both ways. I love your structure. It's like, what's the point of taking all these risks and that sort of thing if you can't enjoy it, first of all, right? And second of all, in order to show up to the best of your ability and not be the guy that's sulking in the corner and bringing down the room, then you have to recharge, and whatever the case may be.
100%. And it's just as important to kind of like encourage others to recharge, right? Like, we used to have a tradition in the past that we would like slow clap people out on their vacation. Cause you know how it, I guess, like, what's the word, but it can be like pretty stressful, or, when you first join in any new place that you take a vacation, right? Like, oh my God, I'm leaving. What's the perception? So we celebrate people going away, and then the key there is like, just set yourself up for success and set the team up for success before you go, so you can truly unplug. Like, we want you to truly unplug. So just, it's on you at that point. And that's what those days have done for me, is like, if I know I have a stretch of recharge days coming up, I will plan my days accordingly before, whether they're focus or buffer, to make sure everything is set up for success. So when I am away, either the people that needed anything from me have it, or someone can take stuff for me. And then I can totally unplug. And when I come back, I actually strategically maybe schedule in a couple buffer days, or maybe keep my out of office longer. That's a trick I use.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. That's been good, because it allows you the space to kind of catch up. So I'll always kind of tack on an extra day on my out of office. It's a little trick.
That's cool. I love the buffer days. I love the focus days. It makes a lot of sense, but I think like a lot of people are lacking maybe that structure, that structure to it. And it's just kind of every day is thrown at you, and you deal with it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's tough to get out of. Like, it's not easy to get into that. And you need a really good support system to be able to do that. You need to communicate what it is, and you have to be disciplined to do it. There's a lot of factors there. It's not easy to do, but it is doable. Like, I didn't think it was doable to take 24 hours off in a row. With like, you should have seen the uproar in the room when our coach was like, okay, so now, no. So my first compromise with that was, okay, I will not think about or do work, but at least I'll scan my email, see if there's anything. This was early days where like literally I was still kind of had my hands in a lot of different client projects. I'll just scan my email just to make sure, and then like, let it go. That was my first compromise. Then eventually where you got to is like, like, if I scan this, it's not really doing anything. There's nothing there. Like, then you start to realize, okay, this is gonna be just fine without you, right? And again, it goes back to, as you build a team and really good people, they have your back. They really do. Just as we would have theirs if they were on vacation. And when you start to realize that, you start to let go more and really get to enjoy and recharge and things like that.
What does success look like to you? What does that mean to you?
It's changed over time. But I've always come back to having the ability to choose how to spend my time. I think that is truly what success is to me. And I think that there's a lot that rolls into that, right? But for me, I'm very protective of my time. And we are very fortunate to be in an environment or in a position where we get to choose what we want to do. And I think that's what success is to me. So it's if I can wake up every day, and truly we're not there yet, right? Like, you're still like, there's commitments we have and all that, and which is totally fine. It's the path to success. But if I can one day wake up every day and choose how I get to spend my time, like unconditionally, I think that's success. Because I'm really, and that doesn't mean I won't be working. That doesn't mean I won't be, but I'm choosing to do all this rather than feeling I have to. And I think that is the ultimate pinnacle for me of what success looks like.
I heard that recently. There was a video that I saw that was explaining a similar concept. Was that it's choice ultimately, and at some point you have ultimate choice, and then beyond that you actually diminish your choice as well, which is kind of interesting, right?
Right, because things get more complicated and your choices get. I think I saw something similar, and it's true, because if you're chasing all this quote unquote success, or that might be like building an empire or whatever. Your choices get limited after a while, because you hit this inflection point where now you're confined by once what you're able to choose, but no longer. And I think like finding that pocket of where you can actually live freely, and by freely I mean freedom to choose, freedom from time, like those kinds of things. That's true wealth to me. Like there's one thing in this world that we all have to live by and live by is 24 hours in a day, right? And if we have the opportunity to choose how we spend those 24 hours, I mean, I don't think there's anything much more valuable than that. And so everything that we're doing, and then not only that, in order to do that, going back to the longevity goal is, okay, well, what things do I have to start putting in place? Not just from a professional standpoint, but from a personal standpoint, to be able to do that. Like when I get to a place where I can choose what I want to do, I want to be healthy. I want to be able, I want to be mobile. I want to be with it in my mentally, all faculties. I want to be proactive, not ailed by injury, things like that. So what can I do now that are going to help me? My longevity goal is to see a full century. So from 2000 to 2100, but I don't want to be in a wheelchair at 2099, right? So it's like all these things, like I'm hoping by then I'll have the freedom to choose where I am at 2099 to roll in 2100, which would be so cool. But there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of work. It's just not going to happen, right? There's like a lot of things, there's a lot of effort that goes into success.
What's next for you? What's next for Forward Level? Do you have any exciting things or anything maybe that you're working on that's new?
Like I said, we're turning 15. I'm really excited for that. I think in the past, like we sailed by 10 and it was 10 and it was cool. But then it just went away. 15 feels different. 15 feels, wow, this is 5 years away from 20. Like, like it just feels different. And so that's very exciting. I think I really want to make, this year special in the sense that create the time and space for us to enjoy it as a company and as the people that have supported us and things like that, and really like lean into it. That's a big one for me. We like to celebrate the moments here. So I think that's a big one. Like I said, we've reinvented their service offering in terms of our marketing side and our HR side, which I'm really excited to see launch. And it's already had great success. So continuing that, continuing the human experience conversation is really interesting to me. Look, we want people to have the same magic we have here with combining business and people. And so I'm really excited to start kind of sharing that message through public speaking and keynotes and things like that. So that's on the agenda for me. But other than that, honestly, it's just, I'm really simplifying life by subtraction right now. I was kind of oversubscribed with a lot of things. And I'm really excited to, we've been speaking a lot about time and creativity and what success looks like and how you get to choose. I'm really looking forward to the next year of like simplifying a bit, not only within the company, but in life in general. I think that's a really exciting kind of path, and an unknown path. You don't know what it looks like because I'm so good at filling time. I'm really curious to see what it looks like if I don't. We're on a no travel embargo right now. This is the longest I've been without being on an airplane. And it's all since January. So February, March, April, May, almost 6 months, which is crazy for me. So my next flight's not till September. And I'm itching to go, but it's a good, like it means I'm changing a I'm changing the habit of being myself, right? I'm always used to being on the go and doing something and filling time. And so I'm really working on that of changing that and creating some space. So, and with that, what's exciting is I don't know what's next. Because I've created some space, or I'm trying to create space for what could be, which is really exciting because I'm excited about the unknown.
I love that idea of simplifying by subtraction. I've never heard that before. And it's almost like kind of similar to make yourself uncomfortable, right? Like you've been used to X, and remove X and see what happens, right?
Yeah. And maybe I was plateauing because I was in my comfort zone. So I'm trying to get out of it a bit. And one of them is not being as busy and seeing what I can do with that. And maybe I do less. Maybe that's still okay, and or maybe I can do more. And yeah, I'm excited for that and see what happens.
Where can we send people to follow along, both yourself personally and your business?
Yeah, so Forward Level on all the channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, I believe. For myself, LinkedIn, if you search my name, I'll be there. And also on Instagram, my name is my handle. So anywhere those along the line. And also just email or swing on by. Happy to have a coffee.
I mean, I'm really excited to follow along, especially if you get into speaking and that sort of thing. There's no shortage of things to learn from your experiences and what you've built. So thank you for taking the time and appreciate it.
Thanks, man. It was great.
Cheers.